Thank you guys for coming to our session today about setting up for success with your business. In AXA's 2023 Startup Report, which was just released this week, 77% of small business owners said that taking the plunge to start a business was one of the best decisions that they have made. So if you're about to start up, just know that the odds are it's going to be worth it. Today we're going to hear from two successful business owners about their journey in starting up. Please welcome Faris Aranki, owner of Shiageto Consulting. He's been one of AXA's featured customers in their 2022 Work Hard, Insure Easy marketing campaigns. And we also have Charlotte Yau, who is the founder of Muihood and one of AXA's 2022 Startup Angel competition winners. To get us started, can you each just tell us a bit about what your businesses do, as you're in pretty different industries?
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. I like lots of interaction, so lots of nodding. Hey, I might even walk amongst you. No, hi everyone, I'm Faris. As Brittany kindly explained, I run a company called Shiageto Consulting, which is a business-to-business strategy and emotional intelligence consulting firm. So we go and work with companies of all sizes to get teams buying into ideas and working better together. So it started 3.5 years ago. It's been, obviously we had COVID to navigate, so it's been a complete roller coaster, but we absolutely love it. We've got a client base of about 25 companies around the world, and we continue to grow and have lots of fun. Charlotte.
Hey, I'm Shah. So my brand is called Muihood. It's a skincare brand rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, and I started Muihood to, one, reconnect with my culture and celebrate its roots, especially during a time when there was so much anti-Asian hate, and also two, I guess, make traditional Chinese medicine in skincare more accessible, and change, I guess, the narrative that it's more than jade rollers and gua sha tutorials. There's so many different other verticals that sit within it, and ultimately inspire people to look after their holistic well-being.
Fantastic. So right now, AXA has their Startup Angel competition open, and one of the main things that they're looking for is for businesses that solve a problem. Can you each talk about what problem you were solving, how you identified a gap so that you knew your business was going to be unique?
Yes, I'll start. So I think I touched on it a little bit just then, but for us it was understanding that traditional Chinese medicine in skincare was really just known as gua sha tutorials and jade rollers, and it had the people that were selling it, I guess, didn't really understand, I guess, the history and the origins. So really picking that apart and creating a brand that authentically talks about it, and also, I guess, make sure that we speak to people that, I guess we work with people who are from ESCA backgrounds, TCM practitioners. That all comes alive through our branding and our content. So ultimately, make a space that people feel inspired to learn about traditional Chinese medicine.
Thank you. Yes, Brittany asked about solving problems. I love solving problems. I'm a strategy consultant, so it's my job. How many of you are going to enter the AXA Startup Angels competition? Anyone thinking of doing it? How many people here solve problems every day? Yeah, I told you I love interactive, right? So I love solving problems in my previous career. So what was the problem I identified? My previous career is I was the ideas guy. I had spent 12 years coming up with ideas for companies to solve their problems. And what I discovered doing that is 90% of them never did anything with the ideas. Not because they were bad ideas, but because people didn't buy into them. A good idea without people buying into it is just a piece of paper. And I worked out I was really good at landing those ideas with teams, companies, and that if you could do that for a company, that's a valuable service. And so I set up a company to do that. Provide really engaging, interactive facilitation and leadership training to deliver that, and that's the problem I solved, and it's proven, even with COVID, to be really well received, and I'm just sorry that I missed out on the AXA Startup Angels competition, but maybe when I start my next company.
Fair enough. So a bit of what you're talking about is you have to do some research to find out what your gap is. Research can be a huge part of starting up your business. In fact, a recent study by AXA shows that the number one piece of advice that small business owners would give to those just starting out is to do your research. But research can mean a lot of different things. What kind of research did you do when you were starting up?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brittany. And research, as you say, is many things. And yeah, you can pay someone to go and do some research. And I guess I had done 12 years of research without realizing it when I talked about it. Going and doing my job and then seeing what impact it had. So that was the research to start the company. But actually, when I then started the company, getting invaluable research along the way around how successful things were came from listening to the clients I was talking to or the people in the market. Every day, and because of COVID, I actually had my first year very little work, but I was still talking to every day to people, and it was about listening to what they were saying about how clear was what I was trying to sell to them, what they really needed at that time. So it was about making sure to create the space to process that and reflect on it. So without realizing, getting a lot of research and information about the market around me.
I think echoing Faris, I think for us as a D2C company, predominantly e-commerce business, looking at who this customer could be, who are we talking to, how do they talk, how do we get our messaging to them was really important. Not only just looking at, I guess, your market in general and the people who are in your space, but also understanding where you sit within the price points. I think as a product-based company, price is always going to be a real key factor for our customers. So understanding what current brands are out there, what they offer, at what price point, and where do you differentiate. I think for us, our main key thing for Muihood is that there was no one in this field who was doing skincare that was rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. And if we wanted to get into traditional Chinese medicine, it was really old school. You'd have to go to Chinatown, you'd go see a TCM practitioner, they'd prescribe you this really gross, ugly ointment, and it's not cute, you don't want to have that in your bag. So for us, that was a real insight and I guess a pain point for me, there's a space where we can change this, and that's what we did.
Great, so I'm hearing the common theme of a lot of customer research goes into it, really knowing who your customer is so that you can make sure you're meeting their needs. Fantastic. So what kind of skills do you think you needed to start up, and what were the things that you felt you could learn along the way?
I think most skills can be learnt. I think the biggest, most valuable skill is soft skills. I think we underestimate how important soft skills are. In the nature of business, you work with people, so understanding how you work, whether it's with your suppliers, with your team, having those personal relationships are really important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Shah talked about soft skills, but also mindset and proactivity. Both Shah and I are either sole founders or we have one other person with us. And what you realize very early on is if you're not in the right mindset and if you don't do anything, then your business doesn't grow. And if you feel a bit negative, you carry that into the next conversation, which then goes a bit shit. And so then the next one's even worse, and then so on. So really working on your mindset and just having a way to get back into a positive frame of mind is probably the most powerful thing for a startup founder. Like you said, you can learn everything else. I was no expert at IT, at HR, at all the finance. I've had to learn a little bit of those along the way, largely dragged by my company, and just enough so that when I hire an accountant or a lawyer, I know what they're talking about and they're not ripping me off or charging too much. So, but those things you can learn, and you can tap into your network to get expert skills. But that sort of soft skills and self-starter, that's only going to come from you.
Yeah, I think that can be really encouraging for people to hear that so much of it is learnable. So even if you're nervous about starting up, don't let things hold you back too much. So we've talked a bit about research, about mindset. As you learned more and grew, are there things that you tweaked in your business?
Oh, absolutely. My whole business is quite different today than it was 3.5 years ago. And some of that has been intentional. Me sitting back and thinking this will be good, testing things and saying this works a lot better than that. But a lot of it has been as a response to what my clients have asked for and actually what the market has asked for. I'm lazy. I'm a lazy founder. I'll only build something if somebody has asked for it and there's an actual demand there. I literally started my company by putting up 4 webinars during COVID saying, hey, I've designed all 4, which one would you like to turn up to? And only the one that the most people signed up to did I actually then go and build. The other 3 I just sent a fake email saying, sorry, it's been cancelled. And that's been a lot of things in my business. I pretended to have them, but only somebody actually wanted them. So there's been lots of pivots, both in my company structure, things we've offered. The way we talk about the business, that's changed a lot in the last 3.5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're starting out, testing is probably the one thing that you're always doing, because you're just throwing things and hoping it will stick. Because when you're starting out, you don't really know what would work for your business. So a lot of the time, you're exploring different ways. I think for us, messaging was really important. We're obviously trying to create a solution for people's problems, whether it's skin concerns. So for Muihood, we were testing so many different messaging, and I mean, when we launched with so much different confusing key messages, and ultimately it was really confusing. So we just had to revisit, scrap that of what we thought we'd launch with this, and then halfway through the year we just sat down, think about what worked, what didn't work, and then from there continue just to revisit it and optimize that. So yeah, continuous learning.
Yeah, I think that idea of continuous learning, and that if you've gone down the wrong path, that it's okay to come back, is a really good thing, because you don't want to keep going down something that's not going to benefit you in the long run. So something that can help people focus is a business plan. In fact, a 2021 report by Wilbur Labs showed that 25% of startups failed because they didn't have a business plan. Do you have one? What went into it, and how does that help you stay on track?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we didn't even have maybe it's bad to say, but we didn't have one at the beginning, but we had a real clear idea. So my background before Muihood is in marketing and branding. So I guess before I started Muihood and I was in the ideation stage, I think I had a real clear idea of the why, why do we exist? And I think that really falls in with, I guess, answering your business plan. Why do you exist? Who are you trying to speak to? What are you selling? Understanding the market and your consumer. I think that's what we had really nailed at the beginning. And I think ultimately when you have that insight and when you know that you know why you exist, you make better decisions on, what the product's going to look like, how you're going to communicate in your marketing campaign. So I think, figuring out that why is really important.
Yeah, definitely the why is very important. And a business plan is one of those things that it could just be a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. And I'm a strategy guy, so I work with companies to develop their business plan. So it'd be weird if I didn't have one. But the thing is, I could have spent 3 months just over engineering a plan. You have to get out there and start refining it. And the best thing about a business plan, mine has, what am I selling? Who are my target customers? How am I going to make money? What are my costs going to be? What are the risks and these sort of things? But the best thing is get out there and talk to people, because it's not until you share what's on your piece of paper and it's linked to that research bit and hear back from people that, oh, that's not going to work. That makes sense. That doesn't make sense. Literally, the way I communicate my message, about my business, which is the why that Charlotte talked about, because of COVID and I had no work, I was talking to at least 10 people a day, trying to change, trying to test the different way to communicate it. I used to do every week a 1-minute video explaining in a different way on YouTube how to explain my video, and I'd show it to my mum and dad, because if they could get it, then anyone could get it. And I use so many analogies. So that's what a business plan to me means, is go and test it in the market. Don't spend too long in a locked room just refining, polishing, and it doesn't have to be a 100-page PowerPoint presentation. It can be literally 1 page that is very simple.
Yeah, I like that idea of kind of just getting started at a certain point. I spoke to someone recently who said that sometimes perfect can be the enemy of good. If you're spending so much time trying to perfect things, you're never going to get started. So sometimes just having the confidence to move forward, but also seeking feedback so that you have a little bit of a reality check on that. So what is one of the small things that you might forget when starting up, but is completely essential to your success as a business?
I mean, you'll forget a whole heap of stuff. I wish there was a checklist, but and it's linked to what you said before. Is it's okay to forget stuff, right? But you fill in the gaps. So I'm kindly here today because I forgot about insurance. Okay, and what I mean by that is I signed up a new customer, and they said to me, "Hey Faris, before you start tomorrow," their procurement team rang me up and said, "Before you come on site tomorrow, we just need to see your insurance documents." And I'd been operating about a year and a half. And I went, "Yeah, sure, which insurance documents?" They said, "Oh, you need your business and your personal indemnity." I said, yeah, leave it with me, I'll get it. I'll send it to you in the morning. I had no business insurance, I hadn't even thought about it. So I went on the internet, I found a great insurance company, hey, it's these guys, AXA, and I got it overnight. And that allowed me to pick up my customer, right? It was the same with my IT system. I picked the cheapest one off the shelf until a company said, "Oh no, that doesn't work for us." So I was like, because it doesn't have this functionality. I'd never thought of that functionality. But, so my clients have kicked me and reminded me of all the things I needed along the way that have made me a better company. Now, sure, if I'd had the foresight, I might have thought of all these things, but I don't beat myself up about it. And, you will, as long as you're surrounded by good customers, good people, you'll be reminded of the kind of things that you might forget because nobody can think of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, there were so many things that we forgot about and didn't really know what we needed to do. So I can't list them all because I'll be here forever. But ultimately, if you're looking to create a business that sells product, for us, it wasn't something that we forgot, but I didn't think we didn't prioritize it as much, is really understanding your runway and really understanding your margins, because ultimately having a product-based business, there's a lot of upfront capital, and then once you start selling through your stock, whether it's to D2C, wholesalers, understanding how much stock you are selling through and when you need to reorder, I think that is so important, because we forgot about that and we were like, oh my god, we've got only 100 cleansers left and we have a 6-month lead time, so don't do what I did, and yeah, factor that in for sure.
Absolutely. Faris, you talked about having people around you that help keep you on track. We're going to talk a little bit about networking. Shar, you've spoken a few times about a female founder community you're part of, and I know, Faris, you also have a group you lean on for support. So how do you find the right support network?
So I found, so I'm a part of the group called Babes on Waves and also the Stack World, and I would really recommend that if you're a female founder looking to start your own business. Really great resources, events, and you can just meet amazing people who, I guess, on the same journey. Babes on Waves. You can find them on Instagram, and then the other one is Stack World. They're also on Instagram, and their website's on there as well. I can send it to you after this. I found them from social media. I feel like the algorithm, just let the algorithm do its thing. And I think nowadays on TikTok, you can literally just type in like female founder clubs, whatever, and I'm sure loads will come through. On the topic of social, I think it's also just a great space to get inspiration. There's so many micro communities that are on there, so if you are feeling a bit lost, just type in Instagram or Facebook or whatever you use, and I'm sure you'll find some sort of discussion group on there.
Yeah, I'm not a member of Babes on Waves, but maybe I should look that up. No, but I have tried a lot of networking groups, a lot of different things, because it's like finding a good therapist or finding someone to a partner, right? You've got to go out there to see if it's actually the right group for you. So I tried paid for networks, I tried free ones, I tried online ones, I tried in person, and I guess there's what I realized is you can't be a member of everyone. So find one or two and so I'm a member of the Portfolio Collective, which is for people with a portfolio career. A really good bunch of people, bring a variety of skill sets, but probably my best network, the one I call my village elders that I've said to you before, Brittany, is one I accidentally created myself. I was lonely. Being a startup founder is incredibly lonely. So I found a friend who was also running a business. I then found a second friend and a third friend, and I had too many friends to meet them all one-on-one. So I put them all together. And today we have a community called the Solopreneurs Club, and there's a few of them in the audience. I don't travel anywhere without them. We're 35 members. We meet once a month, and the whole format is just support each other. We're all doing completely different things, but every month we come together to say, "Hey, this is my challenge this month." And people go, "Oh, I had that same problem about 6 months ago, and this is how I solved it." Right? It's not telling you what to do. It's just I've been there. I've walked in your shoes. And that community really is invaluable for me in terms of knowledge, support, and even contacts. They're like, I know a great lawyer, I know a great person who can fix this. So whoever your community is, find them, build them, and stay close to them.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And Shar, you were talking a bit about finding networks from social media. How do you take it from just a social media connection to something that's really helpful? What do you do to actively engage?
Yeah, so I just DM people. I think direct messaging them, don't be shy. I think you'd be surprised how many people actually want to help and give some time to sit down, hear your idea, and through those organic conversations, that's, I guess, how, like what Faris said, you meet opportunities. For myself, through these communities, I found my formulator and my manufacturer. So if you find someone that's doing something really cool, just say, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, I really want to chat, I'm building something great, cool, blah, blah, blah." And honestly, like 90% of the time, people just respond to me like, "Yeah, let's catch up for a coffee." It's simple as that.
Yeah, in a similar format, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and my friend Richard, who's sitting at the back there, said to me at lunch, "Bloody hell, Faris, every time I open up LinkedIn, your face is there," which I took as a compliment. But building on Charles' point, I don't send messages, like written messages to people on LinkedIn. Every day I send 25 to 30 voice notes on LinkedIn. And those get me open doors for me to people who, how often have you got a voice note on LinkedIn? It makes you want to respond, it makes you want to say, "Yes, I'll meet you." Or at least I find that, right? 80% of people reply, and that's how I've found great people like yourselves, and I found to work with, people to work for, and people who've helped. So there's lots of ways to break this and find new people and move from a virtual world to a real world.
Yeah, I have indeed gotten one of the voice notes, and it really does pique your interest. You're kind of like, what is this? What's happening here? So both of you have been having pretty big success in terms of making some bigger connections. I know, Shar, you've been in Elle and Glamour recently, and Faris, obviously you were the face of one of AXA's campaigns. How do you make some of those bigger connections happen?
Okay, I'll start. So, I have been fortunate enough to be in AXA's billboard campaign last year. So it is the thing that my mum is the most proud of for me ever. It turns out being on a billboard in Victoria train station is more important than anything else. But how did that happen? That was a little bit of luck and a little bit of persistence, right? So what happened is, I told you the story about how I got insurance with AXA. Just carrying on that story, they send you an onboarding newsletter. It's the only time I've ever read an insurance newsletter in my life. Sorry, Brittany. Sorry. And at the bottom it said, "Hey, do you think you could be in a billboard campaign? If so, click here." I thought, why not? I'll click here. And it said, "If you think you could do it, send us a video explaining why you should be the billboard person." Now, I had happened to have a video ready for something else, and I just re-edited it, sent it in. And do you know what happened? Nothing. I didn't hear anything for 6 months, until one day someone from AXA rang me and said, "Hey, Faris, we're doing a podcast tomorrow and somebody can't make it. Now, you seem quite fun from your video. Are you free tomorrow?" I went, "Yeah, sure." Right? So I did a podcast. One podcast led to a second podcast. The second podcast led to, "Can you just do a couple of social media videos?" Social media videos led to, "Hey, do you know what, Faris? We like working with you, right? How about next year you be the billboard guy?" Right? So if I hadn't put myself out there and just taken a little bit of a risk and answered a stupid email, I wouldn't have been on billboards around the UK, right? And I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you. So it's a combination of luck, persistence, stupidity, but I want to hear how you get an L. So I'm going to hand the microphone over.
So I think this is the marketing person in me, but I love spending hours on making decks really pretty. So I think for me, just having the courage to email editors, attach your brand deck, make sure you've really worked on your brand story and it's like super enticing, and send that over to them. Just email it and be like, hey, I'm Shah, I've just launched a skincare brand. Here's more information on it. I've attached the deck for you. Also want to send you the cleanser because everyone loves a freebie. And I think sending those emails, you'd be surprised for how many people want a freebie and want to try what you're making. So yeah, just if you're able to find out, do some researching. I'm a real stalker and I just love trying to find out people's emails, and then once you found them, just spam them.
Absolutely. I think there's this idea that you make your own luck sometimes, so that I think has been really consistent in the answers from both of you. It doesn't just happen by chance. You're going to have to really take that leap sometimes and have that confidence to push what you're doing, because if you don't believe in your business, I mean, who's going to? So I think that's good to hear from both of you, that it's just try something. So one of the big things when you are starting out is securing funding. One of the main ways that people do that can be through a pitch. You've talked a little bit about a deck just now. What goes into making a really strong pitch?
I think really understanding the problem that you're solving, having that in the opening few slides to set the scene is really important, and also not making it like more than 20 pages long. I think the feedback that I've gotten is that I don't want to read a pitch deck that's more than 20 pages because I'm like, you've lost me, it's boring. So like keep it really short and snappy, only like a few sentences, if that, on a slide, just to keep them really engaged, to make super, I guess, interesting statements. For us, when we're going through, I guess, our first seeding raise, so pack as much data as you can. I think people love to see the growth and the opportunities, so any sort of data that you've got, whether it's like we've got 50,000 customers so far, we're projected to hit this many by the end of the year, having those numbers is really helpful. And adding in, making it super visual. If you've got any like great testimonials on Trustpilot, or for us, marketing's our biggest revenue driver, so we have a lot of user-generated content. People really love seeing people's faces and people using it, so adding those videos in your pitch deck are really helpful. So yeah, I think those are the key things.
I haven't any funding as yet, but I guess I'm pitching all the time when I'm trying to sell work and sell the business. And I'd echo everything that Shah has said. Clarity of message, keeping it short, but really thinking emotions. What emotion do you want to leave the other person with? That's a very powerful way to any storytelling, any pitch. But I know when Brittany asked me this question, and spoiler alert, they gave us the questions beforehand. I was like, I haven't taken any funding. But then when I thought about it, actually, I did do a lot of trade-offs at the start of my company. To get in with other clients, and particularly some smaller clients who couldn't afford the fees I was charging, I would say, hey, instead of you paying me, how about I take some free office space? Or how about I take some of your products? So those are kind of investments in your firm and funding in your firm, because those people are supporting your growth in a different way, not necessarily taking debt or equity. Think creatively about how you might get funds and how you might accelerate your own growth, and you'll come up with more ways than just simply asking for money.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to consider other types of funding and just ways that people can help you out and how you ask for that. Similarly, Shar, are there any places that were quite surprising for funding that you found in the early stages?
Absolutely, grants. I mean, I think they're the best sort of funding because you don't give any equity away, it's just free money. That's actually how we've got most of our funding, other than, I guess, personal saving. But yeah, grants are great.
Absolutely. And if you are using personal savings, 59% of small business owners are with you. That's actually the number one way people are doing it, because pitching and finding other types of finance can be quite difficult, or you don't want to give up equity. So as you're saying, grants can be quite a good way to get around that equity side of things. So, are there any softwares or tools that you use that make doing your business easier? Do you automate? How are you using technology to make life better?
Oh, I'm basic. I'm just using QuickBooks at the moment, and I'm really old school. I use Google Sheets for everything. In terms of tech, I mean, and software, for us, a lot of it is project management. So using Notion, I think, is the main thing that we use.
Yeah, not to sound like it's an advert for QuickBooks, I also use QuickBooks for my financing, but yeah, I also keep it simple. Right, you don't need complicated stuff. So if I do a lot out of my my CRM system is my Google Calendar. What I mean by that, everything is color coded. I have a system. I talked about my voice notes. Off the back of that, I have a system for when to chase people, when to follow up. It's all color coded in my diary. So anyone looking at my diary will think it's chaos, but actually it makes perfect sense to me. It flows. It tells me what activity I'm doing that day. I divide my day into 6 different types of tasks. So you don't need I will at some point when the business gets big and wieldy and there's a lot we need to share the same information simultaneously. But it's the same thing I say to my clients. Keep it simple, because otherwise you're fighting half the battle, learning a new piece of software, teaching others about it, trying to sell why it's important, rather than spending time in your business doing the great things that your business does.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting to hear, like, you don't need to be keeping up with everyone else if they're high tech. Do what you need to do. And especially in the first couple of years when it can be quite financially fraught, maybe you don't need to invest in every piece of technology you see. Speaking of the financially fraught early years, what were you doing to prepare yourself in case of any issues financially? That's often the hardest part of starting up, is staying in the green.
Yeah, completely. And I think some of it is linked to that mindset and being prepared for the worst case. So year 1 for me was worst case scenario, make no money. How was I going to have absolutely no money? How was I going to survive that? Do you know what happened? COVID came along, and it was almost that same plan, but actually I'd made a little bit of money, so I could always say, hey, I've done better than my worst case scenario. So, and this is an activity I regularly do with clients, which I do for myself. It's called pre-mortems. A pre-mortem is where you assume something goes wrong. Right? So you think about it in advance and you think, how do I avoid that ever happening to my business or my product or my plan? Right? So I do this semi-regularly on everything. What if this pitch goes badly? What if the whole business flops? What if this new service I'm offering doesn't get taken up by clients? And that gives me both the comfort and that I've pre-thought it and already made some plans, but also more than likely means it's not going to happen. So.
I think for me, if I'm being really honest, I didn't work on Muihood full time until October last year, and the honest truth is just side hustles, and I guess having a freelance job, or if you're your 9 to 5 at the moment and you're lucky enough to do so, maybe do part-time hours if you want to continue working on your business, but also we got to pay the bills. So yeah, finding ways to diversify your income, whether it is, for example, like my background was in marketing and social media, so that was my freelance gig. I did that twice a week, and then I had the rest of the time to build my business. I think that's just honestly how founders start.
Yeah. I think you've also mentioned before a bit about a financial health check that you do on a regular basis. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah. So for us, I'm definitely the right brain of the business, and the left brain is not my forte. That's definitely my partner. But just not being scared to look at the numbers. We set aside time every Sunday afternoon to do a financial MOT. It's literally just, we have a central spreadsheet of looking at what our margins are, what's our revenue for the month, how are we looking, and just being aware of where you are, and I guess understanding what targets you want to reach and what your actuals are. That's what helped us be more accountable on a weekly basis. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I said earlier, in your early days, you do a little bit of everything. I think the fact that I did my bookkeeping, still do my bookkeeping, means I know my accounts very well. It's the same with the website. I built it. I learned how to build it. So when I have enough knowledge to know them, and if something goes wrong, to be able to rectify it pretty quickly. So certainly when it comes to the accounts, knowing a bit more than just your bog standard ins and outs is very powerful.
Yeah, I think that's something I've heard a lot about, learning to do something yourself first before you outsource it. That way you're really sure that it's being done well when someone else starts to pick it up, because your business is your child, basically. You want to make sure that whoever you're handing it off to loves it as much as you, and you're not going to know that if you don't know what they're doing. So, final money question. Inflation is hitting businesses really hard right now. It is the number one worry for most business owners over the next 12 months. Have you had to make any changes as a direct result of inflation?
I have. So two things in mind with that question. One is inflation has meant that a lot of my clients, who are big corporates, have reined back their spending. So it has really changed the portfolio of my clients from big corporates to a bunch more smaller companies. So it might really change the shape of the thing. But also what it's meant is I've had to push through price rises. So I've had to ring up every one of my clients and tell them we are now going to be more expensive, 10% more expensive. Now, as you can imagine, having that conversation with 25 people can go different ways. Nobody likes a price rise. So it's a tough conversation, actually really useful, because you can remind them of the value you're bringing. You can re-establish a relationship. So some of those clients we haven't worked with in the last 6 months. So it was a great excuse to have a touch point. So yeah, we've just been through that. We've just raised our prices across the board, and I'm hoping there's nip inflation in the bud. So, but I think it's made us tougher as a business, right?
Yeah, I think for us that looks like all of our NPD, so new product development stuff. We order in all of our raw materials from all different parts of the world. So I guess having that central doc of what our margins look like, how much it costs us from creating the product with the manufacturer, packaging, postage, all of that sort of stuff. We have a document where I guess it shows us what this looks like year 1, year 2, and we just have to tweak it. It's a living and breathing document ultimately, and it's something that we constantly just have to revisit and factor in with our new product launches. I think that's always going to be a thing that we're looking at, whether we increase it by 10% or 20%. What would that look like for our D2C business, but also what would that look like when we work with wholesalers, having that in mind.
Yeah. So I think it's important, as you're saying, to charge your worth and to kind of know how far you can push it and still be profitable, and also not be kind of taking your clients for a run. So trying to find that balance, but always charging what you're worth, and you can't really be afraid to do that. So I think at this point, we're going to open it up for some questions from the crowd. I'm sure, Faris, this is going to be your favorite part. I'm going to take this microphone. If anyone has a question, throw a hand up. I'll come to you with the mic, just so everyone else can hear too.
Thank you very much for your time. It was very interesting. And the thing that I wanted to know more about is about the grants. Like, how did you found them? How, did you approach them? Because, those are important, opportunities that I wasn't aware from, for example.
Thank you. Here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, a lot of Googling on what grants are out there. I think if you do a quick search, there are lots of blogs that showcase, I guess, the current that are live. And we had one key document that a lot of the grants ask similar questions. So have a skeleton document where they'll always ask you, what's the problem that you're solving? What's your market size? What work have you done already? Showcase your achievements, that sort of stuff. we had, I guess, our Bible document that had all of our key answers, and then for each grant that we applied for, we just tweaked them, so you weren't spending hours on writing your answers again. You're just ultimately like tweaking to fit that grant. Whether it's a sustainability grant, you just change your answer to fit with that. I think that's our approach to one save. Also, you can just spend one day to really think about your answers and make sure that they're really, really good, and then it's more of a case-by-case tweak here and there.
Starting with the close ones, I'll get to you after, I promise.
How much of it is people skills and then the product you're selling? Because I'm guessing there has to be certain people skills, and if you want to develop them, does going to a business school actually help? Or is it all crap? Because I used to believe it's waste of time, like going to business school. But recently I've gone more to them and I realized there are more to them. You can get more out of them instead of just learning about marketing and growing.
Bearing in mind I sell people skills, I would say it's a very important thing. Literally all my business today, and like I said, 25 companies I work with, Amazon, Heineken, Anglo American, Tesco, all come through networking and people skills. Okay, and you say to me, obviously you need to have business acumen. You need to know. I can go into how trust is formed, but it is basically credibility, authenticity, and reliability. So if you don't have the credibility, you know what you're talking about, people aren't going to listen to you. But the other great thing about business school, and I have taught in business schools, I've been to business school, is the networking. It gives you a portfolio of people that will be very powerful. So I didn't answer the previous question about grants. Pretty much the only grant I took for my business was joining the government Help to Grow scheme, which is a mini MBA for business leaders. And that gave me a network of 100 people who've started their own business that I can tap into anytime, not just for support, but also work and contacts. So that is a really powerful thing that people forget about business school that I would highly recommend. But yeah, people skills is very important. And the great thing is we all have them, just practice them more.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said everything, really. I don't have much to add on. I think I didn't go to business school, but a lot of it is through experiences, experiences with the people that you've worked with in the past. And I think as a founder and when you start your own business, you quickly learn what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's multiple paths to credibility, right? Whether it's business school or experience, but that credibility is probably very important. I think you had a question, yeah?
Thanks so much. Mine is a follow-on comment on your grant question, the actual question. Keep an eye, and depending on the nature of your business, but if it's an innovative business, Bookmark, Innovate UK, I'm part of the agencies like Connected Places Catapult, so we work in transport, etc. Maybe not relevant, but agencies that can provide support and they're governmental backed. So it's worth keeping that in mind and ask for support free of charge.
We have time for one last question. Yep, you're very enthusiastic. I'll bring this down to you. You guys can pass that down. Thank you.
Hello guys, how are you today? Hope everyone's doing well. So my question would actually be on brand. As an SME, what do you think is important to get your brand out there? What do you felt like was beneficial for you? And how often was you, let's say, posting online? What platforms was you on? Yeah, just sort of brand.
All right. Who wants to go?
Okay, I'll go first. So yeah, I created a brand, whereas I could have just gone my own, but I did that for a specific reason. I gave it a Japanese name. I gave it it's got a backstory, and I found it's resonated very well with clients. It gives a talking point. It also gives me a bit of distance from just promoting through myself rather than promoting through the brand. And what happened is built a business around it. So it's almost like the old if you build it, they will come sort of philosophy. So I put it out there I predominantly use LinkedIn. So I do use social media a lot to promote the brand. I've been in an advert and they allowed me to put my brand in that as well. So that's fantastic because I got free publicity around the UK. But yeah, people know the name Shiageto. My clients talk about it. I now have mugs, pens, pencils. Clients love it. They know if they spend enough money with me, they'll get a mug, then they'll get a bag, then they'll get an umbrella, right? It's silly stuff like that, but it begins to take over. And early days, it may sound silly when you're talking about it, but certainly in a B2B business, I found it very useful.
Yeah, I think as a D2C company, I mean, I could talk about brand for hours because I love it, but I would approach it as think about what this brand would be if it was a person. What personality would it have? What's your tone of voice? What does it look? What's the look and feel of it? And once you have that, you start to understand, I guess, how you approach social and how you approach your marketing. Your go-to-market plan will change, not change, but also will ultimately reflect the brand itself. If your brand is more Gen Z, you're going to be on TikTok. You're going to be posting more video content. Your social channels look a lot different if you were a car company, but that's target demographic is for 40 and plus. So I think understanding who the brand is in terms of what the look and feel is, the tone of voice, and what channels would this brand sit on would be, I guess, maybe a first step.
Cool. All right. Is mine still on? There we go. That is actually all we have time for today.